Welcome to Walls and Wire. Today, we're talking about Anthony Loke's post-mortem on the recent state elections and the massive challenge facing the Democratic Action Party. I mean, you read this, and it's not just news, is it? It feels more like a political confession.
It really does.
You have Anthony Loke, the Secretary General of the Democratic Action Party, coming out and publicly saying his party and, the entire Pakatan Harapan coalition is facing what he literally called a serious crisis of confidence. This goes so far beyond the usual post-election spin.
Yeah.
It's him openly admitting that the trust between them and the voters has just crumbled.
It's a statement that carries so much weight, and I think it's because of how honest it is. In our political world, leaders usually try to downplay a defeat.
Oh, absolutely. They spin it.
They spin it. But Loke's admission, it just cuts right through all of that. He's basically confirming that their own internal review, the one they did after those state election losses, showed that voter grievances were they were everywhere.
So they couldn't ignore it anymore.
They couldn't ignore it, couldn't rationalize it away. It completely changes the conversation from PR, damage control to, okay, how do we actually fix this?
So let's get into the scale of the disaster that forced this. Because the numbers, they're just devastating.
They really are.
This whole crisis comes from the Democratic Action Party's performance in the recent Sabah state election. They went in contesting 8 seats. And the result?
A total wipeout.
They lost every single one. 0 out of 8.
And getting 0 representation after running a full campaign? That's not just a loss. I mean, for that state, it's a political annihilation.
Yeah.
For a party that really prides itself on its grassroots support, a complete sweep like this means there's a systemic rejection happening. It's not just one bad candidate. It points to a profound disconnect between what the party was offering and what the public actually wanted.
And you have to look at where these seats were to really get the full picture, places that are traditionally their strongholds.
Exactly. These are areas that usually lean towards the Democratic Action Party. So it tells you that even their most loyal voters either just stayed home or maybe even actively voted against them.
It's a protest vote.
It has to be. And Loke's own words back this up. He said they received a strong signal from the voters.
The strong signal is putting it mildly.
Well, right. And that signal wasn't just, mild disappointment. It was about real, undeniable public anger with the lack of progress on the promises Pakatan Harapan made.
Things like the cost of living.
The cost of living, the feeling that reforms are moving too slowly, the economy. These kitchen table issues are now way more important than long-term party loyalty.
So if the price of bread and petrol's going up, no amount of talk about institutional reform is going to win you votes.
That's the hard reality.
Which must have meant the reaction inside the party was just chaos? And behind the scenes after the 0 for 8 result came in.
Well, the reaction was immediate and very intense. It triggered an emergency meeting of the Central Executive Committee.
The top brass.
The top brass. And the length of the meeting tells you everything you need to know. They started at 8 p.m., and didn't finish until after midnight.
Wow, over 5 hours.
Over 5 hours of, you can imagine, some very high-stakes debate. You don't pull an all-nighter like that unless you feel you are facing a genuine existential threat.
That sounds less like a committee meeting and more like a crisis summit. So what was the big decision that came out of this marathon session?
It was a very tactical, very significant move, a strategic retreat. The Sabah Democratic Action Party decided it would not participate in the new Sabah state government structure.
Okay, so they're on the opposition benches.
But it's more than that. Crucially, they also announced they would decline any offers for appointed state assemblyman positions. And that is a huge deal.
Right. Break that down for us. Why is turning down an appointed seat, even one you didn't win, so powerful?
It's all about legitimacy and perception. Appointed roles are often seen as a political backdoor, a way to keep your influence and access to power even after voters have rejected you.
A consolation prize.
Exactly. And if they had accepted, you can just imagine what the opposition would say and what the public would think. It would look like they were prioritizing power over principle.
So it would look like them saying, your vote doesn't matter, we'll get in anyway.
Precisely. The voters just gave them this overwhelming message of rejection 0 seats. To turn around and take an appointed post would be a slap in the face.
So by rejecting it, they're basically saying, we heard you, loud and clear.
It's an act of political humility, and it's calculated. They're trying to rebuild their moral legitimacy. The message to their leaders in Sabah is now crystal clear. Get back on the ground, serve the public, and focus only on rebuilding that trust you've lost.
And they know they can't do that from inside the government right now.
No. They have to operate from the outside for a while to show they understand they failed and that they need to earn their way back.
Which brings us to their action plan. And this is where the timeline just becomes mind-boggling. Anthony Loke didn't announce some vague, long-term plan.
No, he was very specific.
He said the Democratic Action Party will work directly with the Prime Minister, with DAP Anwar Ibrahim, to accelerate the reform agenda. And he gave a deadline.
An incredibly short one.
6 months. He wants concrete, visible results within the next 6 months.
6 months in politics it's a blink of an eye. In government bureaucracy, you're lucky if you can change a minor regulation in that time, let alone push through major trust-building reforms.
But why so fast? What's the rush? It feels like they're setting themselves up to fail.
Because they see this not as a problem, but as an active fire. A fire that could spread and consume the entire coalition if they don't put it out right now. They know if they wait a year or even 2, the public cynicism will just become permanent.
So this isn't just about saving the Democratic Action Party. It's about protecting the whole Pakatan Harapan government.
It's entirely about that. This is them admitting that this crisis of confidence isn't just their problem, it reflects on the entire administration. They have to deliver something tangible before the narrative of an incompetent government just solidifies. They're literally in a race against public impatience.
So what does a tangible result even look like in 6 months? They can't rewrite the entire legal system. What are we talking about here?
The reforms have to be visible, and they have to connect directly to the things that made them lose those 8 seats. So you're looking at 2 main areas.
Okay.
First, institutional reform. That means things like high-profile anti-corruption moves, maybe giving more power to the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission or taking decisive action on a public fraud case that everyone is talking about.
Something that grabs headlines.
Yes. And second, and this is probably more important, visible economic relief. This could be fast-tracking subsidies, cutting red tape for small businesses, or policies that people can actually feel because it lowers the cost of everyday goods.
Right. So people have to feel it in their wallets.
If they don't, then all the talk about reform is just noise.
And that partnership with the Prime Minister is key then. This means Anwar Ibrahim now has to put the full weight of the government behind this, possibly sidelining other projects.
Absolutely. This problem has now landed squarely on the Prime Minister's desk. He has to make sure all the ministries are working together and that things get done at a speed that is not normal for government.
There's a risk there, though. Rushing things can lead to bad policy.
A huge risk. But they've clearly made the calculation that the risk of moving too fast is still lower than the certainty of failing because they did nothing at all.
It's a massive political gamble, which leads to the big question, and I think it's one for everyone watching this.
Yeah.
Is 6 months actually enough time? Given how deep this crisis of confidence seems to be, can they really deliver reforms that are meaningful enough to change public perception in just half a year?
It's arguably the tightest political deadline imaginable. For it to work, they need flawless execution, and the reforms have to resonate with the public almost immediately.
And if they miss it?
If they miss the deadline, or if the changes feel like just window dressing, minor tweaks, then the political costs will be huge. People will just say the whole crisis of confidence thing was a stunt.
And that trust gap becomes a chasm.
It could become unbridgeable.
So just to sum up where we are, we have a major party in the government admitting to a serious crisis of confidence after getting completely wiped out in a state election.
Yes.
Their response is to pull back from power in that state and start a high-stakes 6-month countdown with the Prime Minister to deliver real, visible change.
The entire political future of the Democratic Action Party, and maybe even the stability of Pakatan Harapan, it all hangs on what happens in this 6-month sprint.
If they can't show people that things are getting better in the next 180 days,
then this crisis could become their new political reality. A reality where a huge chunk of the public is just no longer willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. The clock is ticking loudly.
a lot is riding on this. It's a true test of their political survival.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It is.
And think about this. What if they manage to deliver on some economic policies, say, things that really help with the cost of living, but the public cynicism about big-picture corruption remains? Is that enough to fix a crisis of confidence, or does it take something more? Remember to like and subscribe for more videos like this.